The city hung in the sky, a jewel of silver spires and floating gardens tethered to the mountain peaks below. Here, in one of its quieter residential spires, she lived with her human husband. He was a quiet man, a historian of modest repute who preferred the whisper of data scrolls to the clamor of social spheres. She, a curator of xenobotanical art, had found his tranquility a perfect counterpoint to her own vibrant social world. Their marriage was a gentle tapestry of mutual respect, a joining of two cultures that seemed to say the greatest adventures were. In fact, domestic Dot, he kept a simple, undecorated metal case in his study. He had called it a family heirloom, a thing of sentimental value from a world she had never seen. She thought little of it, her attention captured by the living sculptures of helix ferns and singing moss in her solarium. He was a man of peace, his hands more accustomed to the delicate handling of ancient ceramics than to any instrument of conflict. That the peace of the city was shattered not with war, but with a silent, creeping wrongness. It began with the lights. The ambient glow of the spire's corridors flickered, then died, replaced by a pervasive, sickly green emergency luminescence. The graceful, floating transit pods outside their view window stalled, then dropped several meters with jarring lurches before their backup systems engaged. A collective murmur of alarm rose through the shared ventilation, the sound of 10,000 households feeling the same unease. Then the announcement came, not through the official channels, but as a fragmented, scrambled burst across every private comm and public screen. The image was of the council chamber. Figures in sleek, gray environmental suits moved with a terrifying, efficient calm. They were not conquering with explosions, but with a subtle, digital venom. Their tools were neural disruptors that left bodies limp, and data spikes that hijacked the city's own systems. They were the Gray Silence, a mercenary collective, known for surgically extracting resources and subjugating populations without a single kinetic round fired. Their price was the city's neural core, and its population as indentured processors. Fear, cold and sharp, coiled in her stomach. She rushed to find her husband. He was in his study, the room dark save for the erratic green glow from the window. He was not panicking. He was standing perfectly still, looking at the metal case on his desk. His quiet demeanor had not changed, yet the quality of his stillness had. It was not the stillness of fear, but of focus. "What are you doing?" she asked, her voice tight. He did not look at her. His hand rested on the case. "They have sealed the spire. Their pattern suggests they will move floor by floor, pacifying and cataloging. They will be here in approximately 17 minutes. We must hide, or negotiate. You are a historian. You understand their culture, perhaps. We can reason." "They do not reason," he said, his voice still soft, but now it carried the density of bedrock. "They calculate. They see living minds as circuitry. They will not hear you." He pressed his thumb to a seal on the case. It opened not with a click, but with a sigh of equalizing pressure. Inside, resting in a form-fitted alloy bed, lay a length of polished, dark gray metal. It was straight, with a gentle taper and a simple, elliptical guard. It was not a ceremonial piece. Its starkness spoke of a terrible singular function. She stared, her botanical terminology failing her. "What is that?" "A blade," he said, as if identifying a common tool. "But humans have not used such things in war for centuries." "Your militaries use projectiles, energy?" "Some do," he agreed. He lifted the blade from its bed. The metal seemed to drink in the sickly green light. He then reached for a narrower, longer compartment. From it, he drew a second, shorter piece of the same material. With a precise, fluid motion, he joined the two. There was a resonant snick that seemed to cut through the distant sounds of panic. He was now holding a naginata, a polearm of graceful, lethal lines. Some families remember older ways. Ways for when reason and technology fail. For when the only thing left to speak is the language of consequences. He moved to the center of their living space, rolling his shoulders. His posture, usually slightly stooped from hours over a desk, straightened. The quiet historian was gone. In his place stood a figure of a different geometry, all potential energy and poised silence. He began a series of slow, sweeping movements with the weapon. It was not practice. It was remembrance. The air whispered as it parted around the dark metal. "You cannot mean to fight them," she breathed. "They are armed with neural disruptors, with powered armor. That is, it is a piece of metal." He stopped, holding the Naginata vertically before him. For the first time since the lights failed, he looked directly at her. His eyes held no berserk fury, no boastful courage, only a profound, unsettling certainty. They rely on systems, on disrupting the bioelectric field of the mind. Their suits are hardened against energy and projectile weapons. But they are thin, and they must be able to move. They have forgotten what it means to meet a sharpened edge. The door to their apartment shimmered. The complex electronic lock, subverted by the gray silence's data spike, disengaged with a defeated chime. The door slid open. Two of the gray-suited figures stood there. They were tall, impossibly slender, their faces obscured by smooth, opaque visors. One held a neural disruptor, a bulbous device that hummed with a low, unhealthy frequency. They stepped inside, their movements efficient, their regard impersonal. They saw a terrified civilian female and a male holding an archaic metal stick. Their assessment was instantaneous, a calculation of negligible threat. The human did not shout. He did not threaten. He simply moved. It was a movement of such shocking speed and economy that her mind could barely parse it. The Naginata, a moment ago resting on his shoulder, became a blur of dark gray. He stepped past the first invader, not away, but inside the arc of the disruptor. The long haft of his weapon swept low, knocking the mercenary's legs from beneath him with a crisp crack of breaking armor. As the figure fell, the human was already turning, the blade at the tip of his weapon describing a perfect vertical arc. It sheared through the second invader's weapon arm at the elbow joint of the suit. The disruptor clattered to the floor, its hum dying. There was no spray of blood she could see, only the clean severing of systems and limb. The second mercenary staggered back, a silent statue of shock. The first tried to rise. The human reversed his grip, brought the heavy pummel of the Naginata down on the mercenary's helmet, with a sound like a great bell being muted. The visor cracked, and the figure went still. It was over in less than 5 seconds. The quiet of the apartment rushed back in, now deafening, now charged with a different energy. The human stood between the two fallen figures, his weapon held ready, his breathing barely elevated. He looked at the open door. They operate in pairs. Their squad will note the loss of signal from this unit. They will come. His voice was a low murmur, analytical. We cannot stay. She could not move. She stared at him. This was not her husband. This was a force of nature wearing her husband's face. The gentle man who discussed pollination symbiosis over breakfast had just dismantled 2 advanced mercenaries with a piece of shaped metal. The contradiction was universe-shattering. Who are you? The question fell from her lips, small and broken. He finally looked at her, and for a flicker, the profound certainty wavered, replaced by a deep, sorrowful regret. I am the man who loves you, he said simply. And today, that means I must be the man who guards you. Please, we must go to the service corps. The maintenance shafts are not on their schematic. He gestured for her to follow. Mechanically, she did. They stepped over the fallen invaders. As they moved into the corridor, he paused, listening. From the floor below, They heard the distinctive hum of disruptors and the soft thumps of collapsing bodies. He led her not away from the sounds, but on a parallel path, his movements silent, his awareness absolute. He was a historian. He knew the city's blueprint, its forgotten pathways, the architecture of its birth. He was also, she now understood, something else entirely. A keeper of a silent oath, written not on data scrolls, but in the language of stance and edge. Twice more, they encountered scouts. Each time, the human moved with that same terrifying, poetic efficiency. The Naginata was an extension of his will, never used with rage, only with an utter, devastating precision. It disabled weapons, shattered critical joints, created barriers of fallen bodies and shock. He did not end lives if he could avoid it, but he ended threats with a finality that left her breathless. They reached a hidden maintenance hatch. As he worked the manual override, she watched his profile, etched in the emergency light. This was the man she married. The quiet was not an absence, but a depth. The peace he cherished was not a passive state, but a thing he was willing to forge in the silence between heartbeats. With the only tool left when all others were stripped away, he got the hatch open, revealing a dark vertical shaft. Down here, it leads to the old geothermal vents. They will not look there. She climbed in, her mind a whirl of fear, awe, and a dawning, staggering understanding. He followed, pulling the hatch closed above them, plunging them into darkness, save for a small utility light on his wrist dot in the close, metallic silence of the shaft. She finally found her voice again. "You never told me." "Some stories," he said, his voice returning to the soft, familiar,